Yeah, actually joining the Army is actually preceded by the death of my father, which was in February of that year. Now, my dad did not want me to be a soldier or anything like that. He wanted me to be a lawyer.
Wow.
But when he died, that sort of changed. We were down in Samoa. My father worked for the Federal Aviation Administration, and when he passed on, because he was from Samoa, and that was his dream assignment, go there and work and then stay and live. But when he died, my mom, being from Hawaii, said, "Nope, we're not staying here. We're going home." When we got back here, it's my mom, 9 kids.
Wow.
And she'd never worked a day in her life. My dad was like, "Nope, you stay home, you take care of these kids."
Sure.
But I realized that, nothing good was going to happen if I hung around there. So during the Easter break, I went down to the recruiter's office to see what they had to offer.
Yeah.
And, I took their little test and everything, and they said, "Oh, yeah, you can do just about anything you want." And since my dad worked for the federal, for the FAA, I knew about their air traffic control mission. I said, "Well, could I be an air traffic controller?" And he looks and he says, "Oh, yeah, you're good. Sure, when do you want to come?" And I realized, well, school's not going to be over till sometime in June. So it'd be like towards the end of June. Sure, we can handle that. So, but I was only 17.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to get my mom's signature. And I went and I talked to my mom, and she didn't like it, but I told her, said, "I have no other option."
Yeah.
So she said, okay. So she signed.
Sure.
And probably about 2 or 3 weeks after I signed, I started getting letters from the Department of the Army. "Oh, we need for you to come sooner. Oh, we need for you to come sooner."
Wow.
I think they changed that report date like 4 times. And I ended up coming in the end of May. I think it was on May 22nd or something.
Of 19...
And school's not over.
Okay.
1970.
1970.
And,
yeah.
Yeah. And so I had to go and talk to the counselors, and my counselor, well, I really didn't know about him because I'd only been at that school for several months. He was a reserve officer in the Army. Oh. And he looked at this and, "Oh, yeah, I can do that for you. I'll handle all that. You talk to your teachers and you have enough credits to graduate, but, you just won't be around here and all this."
Wow.
Okay. Well, my mom was pissed, but I told Mom, I got to go. I went to basic training, and at basic training, drill sergeants were sure to tell everybody, almost 75% of you are going to go to Vietnam. So you guys might as well get used to it and learn these lessons well, I pretty much took that all to heart. I want to make sure I come home.
So you told the recruiter you wanted to be an air traffic controller. Is that what ended up happening? Did you end up being an air traffic controller?
Well, actually, yeah. I went to the school. It was at Fort Rucker, Alabama. And it was about 16 weeks long, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But the problem was that when I graduated from school, I couldn't get orders because, well, you can't go to Vietnam unless you're 18, and I'm 17. So I'm stuck at Fort Rucker doing KP every other day. The days I wasn't doing KP, I was doing details. And I'm thinking to myself, I bet you Vietnam is a lot better than this.
Yeah.
And, on my 18th birthday, the first sergeant calls me in. He says, "Here, happy birthday. Here's your orders to Vietnam. Go down there and start processing."
Wow.
So there was a course that we had to go to for pre-deployment type of course.
Yeah.
And, it was a couple of days long. We went out and shot a lot of rounds, ran through the swamps, which was really cold because it's December. And so the water's cold.
Yeah.
And, we go in and do these things. And finally, when that was all over, they decided I was suitably prepared to go to Vietnam. I got to go home for Christmas. And that was kind of hard because I got up Christmas morning and my mom's crying. And I walked downstairs like, what's wrong? And she said, your dad just died and now you're leaving. I don't know if you're coming back. Wow. So, Mom, I'm coming back. Well, the flight was kind of interesting because everybody's nervous. Everybody's talking, oh, yeah, my name is so-and-so, and this is my job. You know, this is what I'm going to do and all that. We got to these two guys, and they said, oh, yeah, we're so-and-so and so-and-so, and we're mortuary affairs guys. And that sort of like killed the whole conversation. And he's like, these two guys are not like, oh, no, don't talk to these guys. This is bad luck.
Wow.
Once we landed, you know, everyone's saying goodbye because they don't know where everyone else is going. We know we have to go to reception station. They're going to divide us up there. But once we get there, you know, we're not even our own people anymore. Yeah. I got there, I think it was like about the 20th of January is 71. So, you know, we got there and eventually they lined us up and put us on the buses that were going to go to Long Bin. And Long Bin, that's where the replacement unit was. And so you walk in and there's a whole bunch of sandbags on the floor. The whole bottom of the bus is sandbagged. All the windows have wire mesh on the windows. There's no air conditioning in the bus. So, you know, there's all this wire mesh. And I'm like, what is this, some kind of jail bus or something? Said, oh, that's to make sure they don't throw anything in here.
No hand grenades.
In there, you know, a lot of you guys are going to get cooked. Wow. So, yeah, I mean, it's like sandbags. And underneath the sandbags, they had steel planking that they use for runways. And they would take some of that stuff and they would stick it in the buses and sometimes in the bottom of vehicles and then sandbags over it, you know, and that was their way of making an MRAP out of a bus or a Jeep or whatever. We're going through the little villages, you know, that are along the road between Benoit Air Base and Long Bin, which is just down the road from them. And, you know, people don't even pay attention to us. You know, I mean, it's like, hey, this is business as usual. But, you know, they were going about their daily lives. I mean, you see GIs over there going to the little shops or whatever, you know, or maybe to a bar or something. And like, this is a strange way to fight a war, you know? You know, you think of war like everybody's, you know, on base and preparing for this, that, and the other. But it was 1971 and things were winding down and seemed the only time you really took the whole thing seriously is if you were at a base camp that was outside, you know, out of the capital area, or you know, there was an attack or something. We had an attack while we were at the reception company, and you have all these newbies or FNGs,
right?
And none of us have a weapon. All the weapons there are being carried by the MPs and the security force, you know, that they have there. And did you hear? No, man. What? They killed a couple new guys, man. What? Yeah. They came through the wire and killed a couple new guys, and then I guess they tripped something, and they started, you know, getting out of the wire. And the infantry guys and the MPs are shooting at them. So, no kidding. Did they get on them? I don't know. All I know is they killed some new guys.
Wow.
And that was, I think, the first night we were there. We went to Dong Baten, and the first dead people I saw were actually Koreans. We were passing one of their base camps, and there were these three guys hanging. You know, usually you have like a big sign over the gate, you know, that says where you're at or, you know, what unit is there. And they had these three guys hanging there.
Hanging.
And I asked the guy that came to pick us up, oh, what happened, man? Those sappers or something they caught? I said, no, those are Koreans. They caught them sleeping on guard, gave them a fair trial, and then hung them.
Wow.
And it was pretty drastic, but the whole thing is you endangered everyone else by going to sleep.
Yeah.
So the penalty for that is death. And so, after the trial, they hung him.
And are you mainly working with helicopters, or what sort of aircraft are you working with?
Well, out at Tainan, we had an assault helicopter company there. We had a Vietnamese Ford air controller unit flying O1s. Then we had an American unit that did the same thing. They're all flying O1s. And then we had units passing through all the time to fly along the border or go across the border.
Yeah.
There's still some bad areas out there. And Tainan was basically an outpost and a fuel point for people operating in that area. They used to fly in all the time to go to hot refueling and refuel and go out and continue whatever it was they were tasked to do.
So now, are you hearing all of the radio traffic from those helos?
Oh, well, when I'm working in the tower, yeah, I'm the primary controller. And, every once in a while we get fixed wing in, maybe a C-130 or a C-7 Caribou.
Yeah.
And more of these facts, coming in and out,
Sure.
get fuel and go back out to continue their thing. But, when you're the local controller,
yeah,
you're the guy doing all the talking to these airplanes.
What kind of things do you remember? I mean, as I'm sure over your time in Vietnam, you've heard, you hear many thousands of messages that come through. Are there any particular things that came through on the radio that sort of stick in your memory? Like, of all of the hundreds of things I heard that week, this is the one thing that really sticks in my memory.
Well, the ones you really sort of like remember are the emergency calls, declaring an emergency, and requesting instructions and that type of thing.
Would this be for like a helo shot down, or you've got
probably took some rounds or something. I had a C-7, fixed wing Caribou coming in, and he declared an emergency. He flew over a place called the Mushroom, and the Mushroom was pretty bad news. And the rumor was there was a radar controlled 37 millimeter gun there. And, that was the route that, a lot of these C-7s twice a day, they would fly over to get out here and make deliveries of whatever it was they were delivering, mail, personnel, and whatever.
Yeah.
And he declared emergency, he had taken fire, one engine out, So, I give him all the landing instructions and everything, and I'm watching and I'm advising traffic like, hey, I got a guy inbound, be prepared to move out of the way so that this guy can get this airplane down. And the strange thing about a C-7 is they're really slow, and they can kind of hang up there in the air for quite a while when they're on their final approach. The first time I saw one do that, I saw this airplane. The airstrip isn't that big. The airstrip is maybe, I think it's like 100 feet wide by about 3,000 feet long. And it just seemed like this airplane was getting bigger and bigger. And as he's coming in, I'm sinking lower and lower into this bunker because I'm thinking he's going to hit us, but that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
But this guy comes in and he puts it down. And, as soon as he puts it down, he gets to the taxiway and he turns into the taxiway and he turns off the engine, the one good engine he had left. And everybody's running around, looking at this airplane, the fire department comes out, the aviation company commander comes out, and everyone's looking. There's some big holes in this airplane. There's this big hole that went right through the engine, and a couple through the cabin and everything.
Wow.
And that's a little scary. But the ones that are really bad is when they tell you they're coming inbound with casualties. you know, and that's when you sort of like, oh, shoot, you know, and say casualties, what do you mean? I mean, you dead? You're talking about injured, wounded, you know, what are we looking at here? And, you know, you clear them in, you know, you bring them in and you get them down and to wherever it is they got to go to take care of these people. One day, we had one that came in from a crash, and you know it had happened earlier in the day. So when we went to chow, it was go over to the other side of the little base, you call it that, you know, for chow. The ambulance, well, the meat wagon, you know, the meat wagon is hanging out there, and the back door is open, and all you can see is the bottom of 3 sets of boots, you know, on these stretchers, you know, and they're covered up, you know, but the boots are still, you know, exposed. And you look in there and like, oh man, this blows. You know, one of the things I did while I was there was I got attached to a Pathfinder unit to go out and support, you know, some operations that we're having. And we ended up at a place called Tainin West. And it used to, at one point in time, it had been a MACV strip, a small, you know, small liaison strip and whatever else. But they were running the big op out of there. The South Vietnamese were. And so they had us set up on top of like this big platform. And at the bottom of the platform was a bunch of barbed wire and a bunch of guys in it, and found out, oh, those are Viet Cong. I'm like, whoa, the real guys at the bottom.
Yeah.
But one of the things that happened, and I really credit this one Pathfinder guy for helping me through this. The Vietnamese were coming in and out. And towards the end of the day, they would be coming in with their dead and wounded. They would park, Deuce and Half would pull up, and they would pull the wounded out, stick them in a Deuce and Half, and take them to the aid station. And the dead guys are wrapped in a poncho, and they would just lay them there. And that line of dead got bigger and bigger.
Wow.
Sorry. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking to myself, this guy's family thinks he's still alive. They don't even know he's dead yet. And, you know, I start feeling really bad. And the Pathfinder, his name, I believe, was Roe. Buck Sergeant, E5, he'd been in Vietnam for quite a while. And he said, hey, man, you know, it's not you. Nothing you can do for them. You know, it's okay to feel bad, but don't feel bad for long. You know, you still got a job to do. You still got to take care of yourself, you know, and that's the way this is. You know, when you're out in the field, you know, not in the rear, so life's pretty hard. And if you're not as hard as life, bad things can happen to you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always remember that because you would see all these bodies lined up. You'd see the helicopter crew chief, the Vietnamese crew chief over there trying to wash out the deck of the Huey from all this blood that's accumulated in there, you know, but it was like business as usual for them. It's nothing personal. I'm just hauling people. We had a program where, because we were attached to the aviation unit. So that's how I got into flying, was with the aviation unit. But yeah, we had some ARVN pilots come over to the unit. They were assigned to the unit, you know, for training, and they were there for, I want to say, 6 or 8 weeks. And so, you know, seeing how they fly and whatever else, you know, it was kind of interesting. I mean, they sort of like got an abridged version of flight school. I mean, they had to learn a lot, but sometimes there might have been an English problem, you know, translation problem, whatever.
Sure.
But supposedly by the time they finished flight training at Fort Rucker, Alabama, you know, they knew enough to be able to fly. Their maintenance programs were always crappy, you know.
Maintaining the planes and things.
Yeah, there was this one Vietnamese general. He would not fly on a VNAF, Vietnamese Air Force or ARVN helicopter. He would not. He expressly said he wanted an American crew.
Mm.
And so one of the benefits of being the guys that flew this general around was that wherever you went, wherever you took him, he made sure he took care of the crew. I mean, if they were going to be at wherever meeting he was supposed to be at for a day or two, they stayed in a hotel, had good food, good chow, booze, and women.
Yeah.
But, he's a Vietnamese general. He can do that. We would fly with some of these units that we did a lot of flight following for. I worked in a place called Capital Center. All it was we were the main hub for VFR flight following. The Air Force, which is right on the other side of the aisle, they did the radar flight following. They had a lot more business than we did, but we still followed, because the Army helicopters are flying at low altitudes. So, they couldn't be picked up by radar. So we would flight follow them from place to place. But you get to know these pilots and whatever else just through that. If anything, their call signs and what the daily missions were. That they normally flew and whatever else. And one of the things that they did was, I think it was 3 days a week, they would fly a courier mission, and it would take off from Long Binh, fly over to Bien Hoa, fly over to Tan Son Nhut, and make an exchange, pick up distribution from MACV. MACV would be there at a little heliport called Hotel 3. They'd be over there. They'd give them, the bags of mail or correspondence that they're supposed to go, and it's all tagged with, where it's going. And then they'd fly off and they'd go to make these stops. It's just a set route. So, we used to say, oh, it's area familiarization is what we call it. That's how we justified, because 1st Aviation Brigade did not want air traffic controllers flying. And they didn't want them to be part of the crew or anything like that, because, I guess for a while there, guys were flying and getting hurt and whatever else, and they're being left shorthanded.
Yeah, you're so a rare and precious.
No more.
Resource.
You guys aren't doing that anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
So the boss, he was pretty. The detachment commander was an aviator, and the detachment NCO, he was an air traffic controller himself, but he had done a lot of flying, in his previous tours too. So they kind of knew, you might have the itch, and so the thing was, oh, okay, it's area familiarization. Don't get killed, Yeah. So, it was a good joyride. You see a lot of the country, take a lot of pictures, talk with the pilot, about things. So on this one day, went like around May, I believe, late April, early May.
Of 72, 70, May of 72?
72. Yeah, it was during that second Easter offensive.
Yeah.
We just got to Lai Khe. Lai Khe had closed down, but there was still a MACV detachment there. So, we get there. One of my jobs, is to get out, and when he goes to the hot POL point, there's like this mason jar. You squirt some of the gas in the mason jar, you swirl it around, you take it to the pilot, and the pilot will look at it, like, okay, yeah, there's no debris in the fuel, fuel looks good, okay, we'll go ahead and refuel. So, open it up, dump the fuel out right there, put it back in the mason jar, then stick the mason jar down by the pumps and fuel the bird up. Fuel it up. And the bird is still running because we're on a hot refuel. And after the hot refuel, we taxi to the hot pad to wait on MACV to tell us, hey, this is what I got, So they come, you give them the bag that was addressed to them, and we take the bag from them, and put it back with the rest of the bags, and we take off. And as we're climbing out, as we're getting to altitude, we hear all this commotion on guard, and basically they're talking about, the guy is down here, And like I said, I look at the pilot and he says, hey, we're going to go north. We're going to go take a look, see maybe we could do something or help. I said, okay, yeah, I'm game. I don't know what we're going to do, but yeah, let's go, And like I said, it looked like a whole bunch of bees in the sky just converging on one point. A lot of helicopters, fixed wing, Air Force fixed wing aircraft and everything. And then,
just kind of circling an area.
This whole thing is King. King is I guess an Air Force C-130. And his whole job was to coordinate, rescues. And I guess that's the standard call sign for that aircraft and that mission. So as we get there, we're circling, we're looking at what's going on. We're looking at everybody else, picking up the chatter, seeing where the guy's at, and what's been going on, because we were down, we were getting fuel and everything, so we weren't there at the beginning. So taking up listening to the chatter, picking up what has been happening, and evidently some birds went in there and took hits, got some wounded. I don't know the status of the wounded. All I know is they took some wounded and had to leave the fight. And once again, like I said, what I didn't understand is, well, where are those Air Force guys that do this kind of thing? Those
the
CH-53s, the PJs, where are they at?
PJs, the pararescue guys, yeah.
Yeah, I never could figure that one out. But, when things were looking so bad, that's when I came up with the bright idea. Well, this is a smaller helicopter than a Huey, There's no door on it. When you fly these little maintenance things, they take the doors to the cabin off and they leave the doors in the back. Well, pilot and co-pilot, which I'm really the observer, they take those doors off to the front, leave the doors in the back on because we don't want the mail falling out.
Yeah.
So that's when I come up with the great idea. Well, we don't have that much downwash on this compared to a Huey. That's a big tree. Now, I'll tell you, if you get close enough for me, I can get out of this seat, and I can jump into that tree and work my way down, cut this guy out, get him to the bottom, and then you or somebody can come and get me.
So let me just catch up. So what kind of helo are you on?
An OH-58.
Okay, so it's a small one. And
yeah.
So a pilot had been shot down. The
pilot was from an Air Force plane.
Okay.
The pilot that got shot down was from an Air Force plane.
And so it'd come down his parachute, and the parachute had got hung up in a tree.
Hung up in the tree, right.
And so you're looking down from your helo, and you can see him hanging from that tree.
Well, I really can't see him, but I can see the tree. I can see the chute, but
you can see the parachute.
Yeah, because the chute is hanging up there. I really can't see him. But
so you didn't know if he was dead or alive at that time?
I didn't know, no. But I told him, I said, if we can get close enough to the trees where I can get into the trees, I can climb down. I can cut this guy down, get him to the bottom, and then somebody can come and get us. And he looked at me, he said, really? You think so? Well, I'm willing to try. And so, we're there for a few seconds. He says, okay, hold on. And so I said, tell you what, I'm going to give you my dog tag. And I'm going to keep my ID card to show I'm not a spy. I'm going to keep my ID card. But give me your survival knife and a radio, survival radio. And if we get close enough, I'll get out, get into the tree, and go down to cut this guy loose, and work our way down out of the tree, and then you guys can come and get us. And finally, he said, okay, well, just as, he's about to tell the guys what we're about to do, King comes over the radio and he says, hey, this is King on guard. Look, guys, we've taken hits on aircraft. We've got injured. From all reports from, people that have been in there, they believe the pilot to be dead. As much as this sucks, we're not going to risk anyone else. And, I looked at him, I looked at the pilot, I said, I can do this. In my mind, it's like, hey, I said I would do it. Damn it, you just take me over there and I'll do this. And he looks at me and goes, I really believe you, but no, I'm not going to let you do this. And I mean, part of me was like, man, I can do this. I really can. But another part of me was like, okay, whatever,
Kind of relieved.
Just that live to fight another day thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But I did feel bad, about leaving that guy like that.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. I mean, because I have this image in my mind of the helo over the tree. You're looking down, you can see the parachute. The pilot's under the parachute. You're thinking, I can jump down there, cut this guy down. Someone can come and get us.
Well, I don't think I could jump down to the parachute. I'm just jumping to the top of this tree and working my way down because the helicopter is so small, it's not producing as much a downdraft.
Yeah.
And so if we get to the top, above the top, and he can come down just a little bit, I can jump out to the top. And even if I miss the top, I'm going to be able to grab something and work my way down.
Yeah, work your way down the tree and cut the parachute loose and get that pilot to the ground. And so then the C-130 the order comes from King to, okay, we're going to get out of here because it's hot.
we're going to stop right here. I don't know if that meant that they were going to come back later on, but the impression, I had was, well, hey, you guys know best. I'm just here for the ride, and I was willing to do this if you're gonna support it, but if you're not gonna support it, like you say, it's not a good idea. Who am I? Okay, we'll go ahead and leave. I would think about it every now and then, especially when I first got back home and they were bringing home all these POWs and things like that. I would always sort of like think about this guy, like, well, he's not coming home like that. I mean, like I said, I didn't know if he was dead or alive, but, the impression I got was that, yeah, he's dead. Otherwise we probably would have kept trying,
And you never learned who he was, what his identity was. Yeah. No. Of your 2 years in Vietnam, is that the memory, is that kind of the strongest single memory you have or the most powerful single memory you have, that incident?
I think the one that would probably stick most is seeing those Arbin dead being flown in from the field and laid out next to that runway. I felt so bad. I mean, like I said, I'm 18-year-old kid, but, the helicopter comes in, like I said, the dew snap pulls up, they put the wounded in there, and then they just start laying these guys on the ground, like it was yesterday's mail. Just putting them down there, laying them. They're all wrapped up in poncho liners, but I know they're dead, and I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking, man, that could be me, if I was an infantry guy or whatever. I mean, that could still happen to you, whether you're an infantry guy or not. But, it just, like, boy, life is pretty short, and it can be pretty fragile because that's the result of this whole thing.
So you were there until when? When did you leave Vietnam then for the last time?
I left towards the end of February in '73. The ceasefire had just taken place, a couple weeks before. The night before the ceasefire is supposed to go into effect, everybody's shooting. Everybody. I guess they all want to use up that ammunition before, the ceasefire goes into effect. And so we were taking rockets. And the strange thing is, like, everybody kind of knew in December that, hey, this is all coming to an end, but they were still sending us replacements. Like, what in the world are they still sending these guys here for? So I on Tonsanute, they had like a army compound there on Tonsanute. And we had our barracks there. It was terrible. It was horrible. But hey, it beat being in the field.
Sure.
And so, I'm one of the older guys there. I'm all of 20 years old.
Jeez.
And, I take it upon myself to keep an eye on the newbies because, hey, this is about to end, man. I don't want nobody getting hurt at the end here. The first rocket attack, boom, 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 everybody gets out, and they go down and whatever. Well, about an hour and a half later, it happens again. So I get up and I'm walking around the barracks, looking, making sure there's nobody in there or whatever else. And I walk into the latrine and there's this new guy sitting in one of the toilet stalls, basically sort of like bottled, wrapped around this toilet. Like, what the hell are you doing in here, newbie? He goes, I'm afraid. Of course you're afraid. We're all afraid. Wow. Tell you what you do. You get out, get the hell out of here. You go back to your bunk. You get your mattress. You lay on the floor next to the wall and you cover yourself with that mattress underneath that steel rack. And that's what you got to do. If something goes off here, your chances of survival are a lot better than if you're sitting here in this toilet and it goes off. Okay?
Wow.
And he looks at me. Now, like I said, I'm just barely 20 years old. This guy was about 24 or 25 years old.
Wow.
And I feel kind of bad because like, dude, really? But I didn't mind telling them, say, hey, man, that's what you got to do. If you're going to, we don't know how long this is going to go on, but during a rocket attack, if you're not in that bunker, you find something to get under, and if you got something to cover yourself with, you do that. And, Army issue cotton mattress is pretty thick, it can't stop everything, but it'll stop enough.
So this was the last day of American war in Vietnam.
That was the day the ceasefire went into effect. And that morning, everybody is shooting. All night long, the artillery is going off. One thing about being in Saigon is that every night they'd have these 175s, these big, I guess they used to call them long coms, 175s, and they would fire these flares up into the air. And around the whole city of Saigon, it's ringed with these flares. And, they're floating down, they're parachutes, and I guess they time them. And I don't know what the duration of one of those flares is.
Yeah.
But when it got to a certain point, then they'd shoot again, and put up more flares. As we got closer to the time, the ceasefire was supposed to take effect, you would hear less and less noise, and then all of a sudden, it was pretty quiet. I mean, helicopters are still flying, airplanes are still flying, people are still driving, people are cheering, oh, it's all over, We were told to stay on the base, don't go off the base because, not that there would be any type of terrorist thing, but, theft would probably go up 100%.
Mm.
And did so, you? We're sort of like confined to the base and all that. The next day, okay, business as usual. You guys can go downtown, do whatever it is you do downtown. And then they had asked guys if they wanted to stay and basically support the embassy, because the embassy still had, flights and whatever else. And I had really thought about that. But once I made up my mind, I said, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good gig, because I was supposed to get out of the Army in May of '73 anyway. Yeah, I'll stay here till that's all over with and go home. But by that time, like, oh, we got enough guys, Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. How was Saigon? I mean, did you notice any difference in Saigon, like 2 weeks after the ceasefire and 2 weeks before the ceasefire?
As far as businesses go, it was like the apocalypse. Like, oh, all these GIs are leaving. They're taking their money with them. You know, guys who had Vietnamese girlfriends, you know, girlfriends are pressuring them to marry them or whatever, you know. There's definitely a big run on the embassy, you know, getting paperwork. Guys that they were like brokers or lawyers who used to do that type of paperwork, they were charging big bucks to get that done. And even then, sometimes I think they just took the money and didn't do what they were supposed to.
Didn't do the, yeah.
So that was a pretty big industry as part of the whole evacuation. It wasn't pandemonium because, I mean, hey, life goes on, you know, with or without you. And, you know, there's still going to be Americans there, you know, even though the presence is reduced and the scope of what it is they're doing is pretty much, you know, like advisory type of things like before the war started. I wouldn't say the businesses were shutting down, but they're definitely scaling back and trying to, you know, like get rid of stuff that they knew they couldn't sell, at least, you know, not to the locals.
And then you've got a lot of the young women scrambling and trying to get married to these GIs so they could, you know, go to the States.
I think it was hardest on the guys that had girlfriends that had children, you know, because all of a sudden, you know, they're faced with this, hey, you know, I mean, if you're really seriously in love with your children and their mom, you know, the pucker factor goes up because how am I going to take care of this? Because it wasn't cheap. You know, those guys, they knew how much a GI made. They knew just how big the envelope could be. The girls are like pressuring on like, oh, honey, you know, if you're not, you know, I don't know what's going to happen to us, you know, you're going to send money. You know, and getting money to someone over there, you know, cost in itself.
Yeah, that'd be really hard.
The younger girls, you know, there were some really nice women. I mean, personally, you know, just nice people, you know. The students were, especially the students, you know, going to the schools over there and whatever else. They sort of like had a bigger view of the world, and they knew that Vietnam was not going to be that great a place if anything bad should happen, which did several years later.
Sure. Yeah.
But as it stood now, you know, it's not going to be that bad a place to be just less American, but maybe not that bad a thing until 75 rolls around.